All right. Should we start? Leleña, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
sure. Go ahead. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, that's just 1 minute past 11. So, good morning for those of you who are on the West Coast, and good afternoon for those on the East Coast. So, I'm very happy to welcome you to today for our Neuroscience Graduate Program Information session that we're running as part of the Graduate Diversity Admissions Fair. Feel free to have your video on or off, as you prefer. We'd love to see you, but whatever is comfortable for you. So we'll start with a brief round of introductions. So my name is Frédéric Theunissen. I'm the director of the Neuroscience Graduate Program. I'm in charge of the day-to-day running, good running of the program, as well as thinking about initiatives for improving the program. In my other job, I'm an auditory neuroscientist, and I study communication both in animals and in humans. And I'm joined by Dan Feldman, who is going to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Feldman. I'm the program director for the NIH T32 training grant in neuroscience that we have at Berkeley, and I've been involved for many, many years in this program and in the great students that we have here. My lab is a systems neuroscience lab. We try to understand the function of the cerebral cortex of the brain using mouse models.
Okay, so moderating this session today is Leleña, Avila, and Peony, who are also going to introduce themselves.
Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Leleña Avila, and I use the she, her pronouns. I'm the graduate program manager for Berkeley Neuroscience PhD program. And as Frédéric said, I'll be taking care of the technical aspects of the session. And I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A for this session. And assisting me is Peony Yu.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peony Yu. I am the graduate program coordinator for Berkeley Neuroscience, and I'm here to support the Zoom meeting. And I'll pass this mic back over to Frédéric.
Okay, and then we also have 3 of our current students who are joining us today, Deepthi, Kailin, and Kailin. So if you please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Deepthi. I'm a second-year PhD student advised by Bruno Olshausen and Jacob Yates. I fit within sort of the computational neuroscience bin, and my research focuses on developing primate encoding and decoding models of the primate retina. There you go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kailin. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a second-year PhD student advised by Chris Bouchard. I'm also in the area of computational neuroscience. My thesis uses computational tools developed in the Bouchard lab to analyze dynamical complexity of neuroactivity and how it gives rise to the subsequent behaviors.
Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline. I am currently a first-year rotation student with the Helen Rules Neuroscience program. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently rotating in Andrew Dillon's lab. I'm using C. elegans basically to study how the nervous system and immune system communicate with each other.
Great. Thank you so much. So, I guess the goal of this session is to give you a brief overview of the program and the application, to ask our students to speak about their own experience in the program, and then we're going to open it up for questions. You might have noticed that we've turned the chat off because we would like to have all the questions in the same place in the Q&A, and you'll find that at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I couldn't find it this morning, so if you don't see it, it might be under the ... which gives you the additional menu. So if you click on that, you can reach the Q&A. So I'll turn it over to Dan, who's going to give us the introduction on the application process and the program.
Okay, terrific. Let me share my slides here. Okay. So yeah, my goal here for the next few minutes is to give you guys an overview of what is the neuroscience PhD program at Berkeley, what are we trying to accomplish, and how do we make this a great experience for students. We're all here, both all of us and all of you, because we think the brain is really cool and there's a lot of great mysteries to solve. In fact, I think many people would say that the brain is really the most important unsolved biological puzzle that remains. And of course, important to understand not only its normal function, but how it goes wrong in disease in order to better diagnose and treat the many neurological disorders which unfortunately today have no treatment. So as most of you know, I think the field is very broad. You can approach this problem from the level of individual, proteins and molecules, gene expression, to cell function and physiology, electrical activity in the brain, brain activation and brain processing in people doing cognitive tasks, or the computational principles that really underlie information processing in the brain. And these different approaches involve lots of different cool methods, and I'm listing some at the bottom. And I only put this slide up here to tell you guys that we really conceive of our program at Berkeley as spanning the full range of neuroscience across all of these different levels, mixing laboratories that specialize in these different areas, and basically all of these methods and many more for people to approach new problems in the brain at all these levels in interesting ways. So that's what we do here at Berkeley. Who are we really? So doing this are about 70 laboratories that are part of this interdepartmental program, which is the Helen Wills Neuroscience Institute, or HWNI. These laboratories span across all these different levels of neuroscience that I mentioned, including both normal function and disease. And these 70 labs together host about 200 PhD students from various programs, 200 postdocs, and so we end up with a community of about 500 people here at Berkeley who are really principally involved in neuroscience research. So it's a very exciting and very varied community. Even though we're all united under this interdepartmental program, which is HWNI, we actually are all members of multiple different departments. So as you're looking around the Berkeley website, you've probably noticed already that there are neuroscientists in the molecular and cell biology department, the MCB department, in the vision science program, in the psychology department, in chemistry, and various engineering programs, in lots of different departments. But really, it doesn't matter where the primary locus of a given laboratory is. What matters is that they're part of this interdepartmental program and participate in this big community, and that's these 70 faculty. So that's kind of how we organize ourselves on campus. Now, one of the things this means for applicants is that there's multiple PhD programs that you can apply to in order to come to Berkeley to do neuroscience research. And in fact, you can do neuroscience research in many of those same laboratories through different programs. So we're here today representing the neuroscience PhD program, which is the interdepartmental one, which is organized through HWNI. And this is the largest program, the largest single program. We have about 12 students that come in per year spanning all areas of neuroscience. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what some of the other programs are as well. There's a PhD program in the molecular and cell biology department, the MCB program. This is a very broad-ranging program, but a few students a year come in to study neuroscience through that program. The biophysics PhD program also has several students coming in each year to study different aspects of neuroscience, mostly at the protein and structural biology level or at the neural systems and imaging level. The psychology department has its own PhD program, and there we get, again, a large handful of students each year coming in to study different aspects of cognitive or systems or behavioral neuroscience. And then the vision science program has a very wide range of people studying vision, including people in the neuroscience field. And there, again, a few students per year enter to study aspects of visual neuroscience. And so, unfortunately, Berkeley's campus policy is that you can only apply to one PhD program per cycle, so you have to choose the one that suits you best. We can answer lots of questions about the HWNI program today, but if you have questions about the other programs, you can try to ask at the end, and I can answer those if you're trying to decide which program is right for you. Okay, so what is the general progression of training through the program? Well, in the HWNI program, like most of these other programs, it's about a 5.5 or 6 year total duration to the PhD. And when students enter, you first enter and join what we call our neurocamps, which give you some training in experimental methods and quantitative methods and some basic background in neuroscience, bringing people in from lots of different fields to study this problem. That happens right before your first semester starts. And then in your first year, you do 3 different research rotations in different laboratories of 10 weeks each to get a sampling of what lab you might want to join for your thesis work. At the end of the first year, you join a thesis lab. And then once you join it, you begin to do experiments and analysis and thinking to define what your thesis project is going to be. And you have your whole second year to do that. And that comes to a culmination at the end of your second year when you take a qualifying exam in which you make a proposal for a thesis project you want to work on, and you also take essentially a general knowledge exam on background information in neuroscience that we feel that all students should have in order to proceed. So in those first 2 years, as you're rotating and you're doing that initial work in your thesis lab, you're also taking a set of required courses that give you a great background education in neuroscience. And from that point forward, at the end of your second year, once you pass your qualifying exam, you basically are doing your thesis research for all of your subsequent years. You take a few other things like an advanced seminar class or a statistics class, but you're working towards really making discoveries, new discoveries in your field that are going to be publishable as papers, and you'll be publishing papers during this time. And at the end, those papers together become your PhD thesis, and that's what earns you the PhD when you graduate. So this is kind of what you do on an individual level, but we also have many community activities during this whole time for students. We have lots of seminar series, we have an annual retreat, there are journal clubs, there are group meetings, there are multi-group larger research meetings, there's career skills training. There's lots of things that you're doing to equip yourself in a research career, either a research career in academia or one in industry or one in a related kind of area. But our goal is to graduate people who are very good at thinking about science and doing science and then using that in whatever way they want to for their future work. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention, in your first 2 years, you also will learn a bit about teaching. We have students TA for 2 classes once in year 2 and once in year 3. Okay. Now, I do want to point out, probably most of you know this, but everybody who's accepted in the program here gets a full paid tuition and a stipend and health insurance and a number of benefits for their entire time. You don't have to raise your own money or earn your own fellowship here at Berkeley, and you don't have to pay your way by teaching. As long as you follow this program and remain in good standing, you're fully supported. Okay, so we are excited to have students not only across the range of neuroscience, but students from a diverse range of communities and geographical locations and perspectives who come and join our program. Our goal is to offer a really diverse and inclusive training environment, and I think that we do that pretty well. We do that for all of the reasons that I think most programs do that, which is that we really believe that a diverse set of perspectives really makes for better science and better teams and a much more exciting and interesting community to do research in, and that's what we're trying to build here. This map just shows you a little bit of a geographical portrait for some of our recent classes of where our students are from. These arrows are actually international students because we do have a good chunk of international students in our community as well. We have a bunch of programs here at Berkeley that help support diversity and really make this a successful place for students from many backgrounds, and I'm listing some of them here. I'm very happy to answer questions about these that anybody might have, but I do want to point out this bottom one here, that in addition to the scientific training that students get in the program, we also train our mentors actually every year on how to be better mentors, including how to be effective mentors from people from diverse backgrounds. And we really have a goal of working to improve this and make this as strong a part of our training as we can. So overall, I'm giving you some numbers here on the bottom. About 35% of our students right now are from underrepresented backgrounds. About 15% are international, and as you can see, from a very wide range of institutions. Okay, we have a number of programs here that we implement in order to create a supportive and sustain a supportive and social community. We have activities to encourage students to go to lunch together and make friends together. That's Neuro Friends. We have social hours, which are basically beer hours on the lawn. We have a program where new students are paired up with senior students to kind of learn the ropes and get advice on how to succeed in graduate school here. And on the program level, we really offer advising that spans your entire time in the program from your first rotations up to your graduation. And overall, we have a very good PhD completion rate, and I think we train students very well. Here's just some evidence of the success. I won't go through all this, you can read it, but our students publish really well. Many of our students receive competitive outside fellowships, which I think is a sign of the strength of the students and also the health of the program and the training that we provide here. And lots of our students, well, really all of our students go on to exciting careers, a whole range of careers. I'm giving you a little snapshot. I'll point out that we've had about 150 graduates so far in the whole life of this program, which is over 20 years at this point. And of these, we have almost 40 students who have their own laboratories as tenure track professors. many in industry, many in postdocs, founding startup companies, others in related careers. And so there's really a lot of great outcomes that we support here. Okay, I want to give you one tip before I close on how to have a successful application. So those of you who have looked at the application material know that there's a couple of essays to write and a bunch of boxes to fill out. But one piece of advice I would give you is that it's very important to put some time into constructing your statement of purpose. This is your main essay. And I just want to tell you the inside scoop that what we're looking for there is for you to describe one or two research projects that you've done, all the way from what was the idea, what are the hypotheses, how did the experiments work, what did you conclude at the end? And our goal is that we want to be able to judge a bit about how you like to think about science from this. So think about that when you write that essay. It's super important. We also have, of course, a personal statement where we really want to hear about individual students' backgrounds and challenges and broader contexts and things that help us see you as a broader person, to know what you can bring more broadly to the program. And then also think about faculty who you're interested in potentially rotating with. Most students name 4 to 6 faculty whose research interests you. And again, that gives us a better idea of kind of what your goals are. The application deadline I'm listing here, you probably all know, is November 27th. And if you've been to any of these programs or even a few more, there are fee waivers, so you don't have to pay to submit your application. And if you have questions about that, you can contact us at the program email address to learn more about that. Okay, so that's what I have. Berkeley is a great place, and I encourage you all to think about the program. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we can move on to the next. Okay, Frédéric, I'll turn it back over.
Yeah, I'm here. So next we're going to turn to our current students, and our students are going to share with you why they applied at Berkeley, what was the experience for them, what they wish they would had known, as they were applying, and maybe afterwards as well. So we'll start with Deepthi, followed by Kailin, and then Caroline.
Cool, thanks, Frédéric. So I'll start off with why I applied to Berkeley. So as I was doing my graduate school applications, I was really interested in applying to schools that had a heavy computational focus, or at least ones that had relatively robust ones, and Berkeley was one of the options. So that's sort of why I applied to Berkeley. In terms of the application process and things that I wish I had known, I very strongly echo Dan's advice on structuring your statement of purpose. It really is just to sort of highlight, can you think about research questions? How are you thinking about them given your experience? And how would you bring that to the Berkeley neuroscience community? And then this sort of goes into why I ended up picking Berkeley and my experiences here. So when I was deciding between graduate schools to sort of go to, Berkeley ended up sort of standing out because the community here is one, just, very tight-knit, even though we sort of span a bunch of, regions of neuroscience. But also everyone here is incredibly passionate about the research that they do. And I really enjoy all of the different seminars that we have. Even the retreat, which is so much fun, or even just talking to other students and professors. Everyone is incredibly passionate about what they do. They're so willing to talk to you about their work and how, you can apply it to your own work, or if you just have questions. I just really like the sort of the curious atmosphere that's here. And it's sort of also balanced with, people being really laid back, which coming from the East Coast was definitely something that was very different for me. But yeah, and so my experience at Berkeley, at least coming from a computational background, is just that it's really nice to be able to be in a space where I can do sort of modeling work, and also really think about, how does this tie into the circuitry of the brain? How does this tie into experimental work? Because, theoretical frameworks, computational frameworks don't really hold any value if they don't follow the science, the experiments of it. And I really liked that, my advisors who are in vision science and in the theoretical neuroscience realm really sort of emphasize and think about that. So that's why I applied and picked Berkeley and sort of my experience here. So thanks.
Thanks, Deepthi. Next, I'm going to share probably more on why I ultimately decided to come to Berkeley. Why I applied is echoing what Deepthi said. Berkeley has really excellent research. I wanted to get a broad education of neuroscience, but also with a focus on computational neuroscience, and also being able to do rotations. And why I ultimately choose Berkeley, I would say three big reasons. One is the research interests. When I was narrowing down schools and picking between programs, many schools and programs have already really excellent research projects and interests that align with me. So it was kind of hard to decide just based on that. But since I only apply to schools where there are multiple faculties who I might be interested in working with, but I also thought of it from the other end. What if everything goes wrong, as in if the people I rotate with can end up taking students, or if my research interests diverge or change, where would I still be happy? Helen Wells, because of the way that it's structured, there's a lot of diverse faculty and interests who I would love to work with. And I can't take credit for this advice. It was given to me during the recruitment visit by Tyler Tweck, who is another student in the program. Thank goodness I did take this advice, because my interest did grow and change. I came in interested in mostly human neuroimaging, but I find that I really love the computational aspects and the modeling aspects that is unattached to a specific modality, such as neuroimaging. So now I'm in a different field now than where I started. It's difficult, but I'm really enjoying it. And the second reason is the students, like Deepthi said, I really enjoy all of my conversations with the Berkeley students. I find that students here work hard, but they also take care of themselves and take care of each other in and outside of the lab. I also really like my cohort during visits. After the visit, for example, I really hoped that Deepthi would come here, and I'm glad that she did. Lastly, since doing a PhD is not a quick thing, and you'll be spending a solid few years of your mid-20s, at least for me, in grad school. So I want to make sure that I want to live in the area. And the Bay Area is a very fun, vibrant, and diverse place. So yeah, I'm glad that I chose here.
Thanks, Kailin, Deepthi. I guess I'll also echo both of your points. As for why I applied, I don't really have anything to add really to that. It's Berkeley. It's a really good institution, good funding, good research. Why I ultimately decided to join. So I was considering a couple different programs when I was applying, and then Berkeley, I liked Helen Wills because the smaller cohort, most neuro programs that I was looking at, the cohort size was closer to maybe like 20, 30 people. And Helen Wills' size of around 12 is kind of like a really nice size, because it's small enough that you can get really close with your cohort. And the fact that this is a rotation program means like generally for the first year, you interact more with your cohort than like a particular lab, even though you still like meet 3 labs and all that. So it was really nice to build an inter-cohort sort of like community. And also just there's enough people, like it's not so small where it's like it's you and Steve, you know what I mean? Like it's a fun time. I also really liked so Helen Wills is interdisciplinary. A lot of neuro programs say they're interdisciplinary. I haven't met one that has been like, we're not interdisciplinary, but Helen Wills, I liked how the interdisciplinary, like it's interdisciplinary because of collaboration between faculty members and also interactions between grad students from different departments as well. So like there's a lot of like neuro labs that have like EAT students, for example, or like things like that. And coming from my research background, I was more interested in molecular, but I was also very interested in like computational data science. So Berkeley was a really good place for that. And then like finally, like we had a really good recruitment like weekend last year. And I really enjoyed talking to faculty members, like just throughout. Because like sometimes like you do interview weekends or recruitment weekends and the faculty are like stressful to talk, like they're good, they're fun to talk to, but they're like stressful to talk to. But Berkeley, I personally felt very at ease talking to every faculty member that I met. And also, as Kailin said, I really liked the other people that were being recruited. And I also hoped that a couple of them would join, and they did. So it was fun.
Well, thank you. And I think that the points that you made are great. I mean, a lot of the collaboration, and you say it's through the faculty. I would say my impression is that it's through the students, is because you guys are such a great bunch and, you know, are working so well. You know, I mean, there's really this feeling of cohort, and you really take advantage of that, and then, you know, foster all these kind of collaborations across labs. So kudos to you guys. So we're going to open it up to questions. I've already started answering a few, but it's hard to kind of listen and to answer questions. So
I can moderate that.
You can moderate that. Okay, great. So
yeah.
we can maybe, I don't know, Dan, Leleña, and I think we have the answers to some of these questions. Then I don't know if you have the Q&A up on your screen.
Yeah, I'll call out some of the questions so that we can answer them live,
okay,
and that way everybody can.
Awesome, great, thank you.
So
yeah, you can do that, and then we can. And then if you want to ask a question in person, you can always raise your hand, and we can you can also speak up and could make things faster as well. So okay, Leleña, I'll turn it over to you then.
Okay. We have a question about rotations. So, you know, if a student was to find out that they wanted to join a lab from their first rotation, do they do fewer rotations? And are there situations when students do more rotations if they feel like don't fit with the 3 labs they rotated with? Someone want to take that one?
I can take that one. That one is easy to take. So the 3 rotations is required. And it's really a very good experience. So you know, you're gonna even if you decide, oh, this is the lab I want to work with. First of all, you might be surprised that, you know, that 3rd rotation that you thought might be a good training because you're going to learn another skill is actually just as exciting, and you know, you might rethink your initial choice. But they're just great experiences. I mean, it's an amazing opportunity, not just to work in a lab, but to really learn specific skills in the different labs. So the 3 lab rotation is really, I think it's one of the big pluses of this program, and it's something that I think all of you will enjoy. And so the students picks the labs. It's a conversation that is between the lab director, you know, the PI, and the students in terms of, you know, this being a good fit. So that's really, it's somewhat informal in the way that we're doing. There's really usually no problem if a student really wants to join the lab for the student to join that particular lab. Rarely there's situations where, and it's just, you know, out of random fluctuations where you have multiple students or too many students who want to join the lab, you know, in which case, it's really up to the PI to decide which one he or she will take in the group, and then, you know, the other students, you know, find another home. We've had students who've done additional rotations if the first 3 didn't work out.
Great. Let's see here. Someone asked, and if letters of recommendation are accepted through Interfolio. The letter of recommendation process is managed by graduate admissions, and I am actually not sure about the answer to that question. So if you could, we will put our email address in here, and if you can email us that question, I can follow up on that and let you know. Let's see here. So the next question. Is there a veteran fee waiver? Again, fee waivers are something that's managed through graduate admissions. I am putting right now in the chat a link to the fee waiver webpage. On there, it talks about how to apply for a fee waiver for financial need, and there's also a list of programs there. I would say if you feel that there's a program there that you think should be represented that is not, to definitely reach out to graduate admissions, because they would be able to tell you if there is maybe one of these other categories that you may fall under that may help you with the fee waiver. Let's How many students get admitted every year with respect to number of applicants?
I can take that. So we have these days, most years, about 400 applications, and we admit somewhere around 30 students to get ultimately our class of 12. So that would be an admissions rate of around, I think, 8% or something like that. And I think you'll probably find that that's actually pretty similar across all the competitive top programs. So we're right in there with the rest of them.
There are several questions about, I have a background in A, but I'm kind of more interested in B with regard to neuroscience. Is this the right program for me? And I'm wondering if any of you want to kind of take that.
I can take the architecture one. So we don't have a joint architecture and neuroscience program. That sounds like a fascinating, join of two branches. That would really depend if you're thinking more as doing an architecture project that has some mental health implications versus really doing research in the brain and how space might be represented in the brain. So you really would have to contrast those two interests of yours. There's, in terms of collaboration, so if you're outside of Helen Wells Neuroscience, for example, you want to do a PhD in architecture to think about spaces that are good for mental health, there's of course many ways to collaborate with neuroscientists on campus. And so I've had labs, graduate students in my lab, for example, who were not part of the Helen Wells Neuroscience or psychology, but wanted to collaborate on some aspects of my research, and end up doing most of their PhD work in my lab, even if they were in another department. And so in those situations, you tend to have two thesis advisors. You still have one in your home department that would be your main thesis advisor, but you can do that type of collaboration.
And I can answer some of these questions about students applying from different backgrounds. So we definitely recognize that since neuroscience is so interdisciplinary, we draw people who are from many different backgrounds who are interested in coming into neuroscience for their PhD study. And that's something that we welcome. Like, we really want to get talented people from all sorts of different intellectual perspectives. Now, and so you don't actually have to have done research in neuroscience to apply to the neuroscience program. You can take whatever research you've done. We do need students to have done research, right? But you can do research in whatever your prior area was. And as long as you explain, in a practical, realistic way, what you're interested in neuroscience is, then I think you'd be a good applicant to the program. Now, there are many students who have kind of realized along their journey, let's say in the last 6 months or a year, that actually their interest is in neuroscience. And so they've gotten a little bit of research in neuroscience experience, right? And more research before that. And that's great too, right? So then in your application, you can describe a little bit about your prior non-neuro research, and then you talk about some of the neuro research that you've done. And then there's a related question in here. If you have neuroscience research experience in one area, let's say human cognition, when you come in and do your research rotations, could you choose to do a rotation in something completely different, like molecular neuroscience? And the answer is yes. The rotations are meant to allow students to explore, very varied, potential interests and figure out what they actually want to do.
Great. Someone also asked, if we apply to the neuroscience program and for some reason don't get accepted, can our application be sent to the MCV program?
Yes, we have a checkbox on the application. You can check a box that indicates exactly that. And we try to make that happen. We can't guarantee that MCB will admit you, right? But we can move the application over so they can consider you.
Let's see here. Of which program would be more suitable to my interests in various areas of neuroscience. I think one of the things that I would suggest that students do is to look at our faculty page. And if you click the link on there that says View Neuroscience PhD Program Faculty Area, and see what areas of research that they are studying. and see if there are faculty of interest that are studying those particular areas of neuroscience. And you can use that and kind of compare across programs. We also have a section on our application information page. Peony, if you could find that and put the link in there. But it talks about the different programs that Dan had went through in the presentation and a little bit about each of those programs. And so if you're like, oh, should I apply to psychology or should I apply to neuroscience? You know, take a look at what each of them studies, take a look at the faculty that you would potentially be working with, and based on your interests, you can make an assessment there as well.
Leleña, can I add to something that you said?
Yes.
So I was sort of in a similar position where my undergraduate training is in biomedical engineering. And so when I was applying to graduate school, it was sort of the question of, you know, do I apply to bioengineering programs or should I apply to neuroscience programs, since the bulk of my research experience was in neuroscience? And one of the things that I found really helpful was, you know, just sort of asking what kind of training did I want to get? Did I want to get sort of like an engineering principles training in graduate school, or did I want to get sort of like a foundational neuroscience training? At least at Berkeley, you know, for our qualifying exams, we have a list of 100, you know, foundational neuroscience questions that sort of span all of these different areas. And the emphasis here is, you know, to make sure that we're well-rounded neuroscientists. And that was something that I sort of wanted from my graduate training. And sort of asking yourself, you know, what kind of emphasis do I want in terms of like my training as a student as I, you know, pursue my doctoral degree is, you know, something that might be of help to some people. And I recommend doing that.
Another question.
I'm just going to add one thing to that, and Deepthi, thanks for mentioning that. I think that's an excellent, because I see there's a lot of questions about commenting on different programs, you know, biophysics versus MCV versus. We also have a bioengineering. So if you have an engineering background, there's a joint Berkeley UCSF program that's bioengineering. And since the faculty are part of all these different departments or graduate groups, it's kind of a little bit confusing. And so it makes almost, well, it's more important. I think I'm just kind of paraphrasing what you said, Deepthi, to look at a little bit at what the training is offered in different graduate groups and which one fits what you want to do and kind of, you know, your aspirations. And so you could, you know, I would recommend looking through the websites and seeing what classes are required, you know, how the graduate programs work, and see, oh yeah, this is really kind of what, you know, what I'm interested in.
Keep in mind that I think this was said early on, that you can only apply to one graduate program at Berkeley. So if you're putting in an application for neuroscience, you cannot also put in an application for another program. As Dan mentioned, we do have a box where you can check for some of our programs to identify if you would like your application transferred. But you can only apply to one. Somebody asked specifically about the UCSF bioengineering program, which is a joint program with UCSF. If you're applying through the Berkeley side of things, you can only submit one application, and you would have to choose one of those programs. I do not know exactly how the application works for that particular program on campus, and if you're able to apply through UCSF on that. But just to clarify, you can only submit one application at Berkeley. Kind of following up, so on the kind of transferring application, so if someone applies to our program, we have a checkbox where they can choose to have their application transferred, but does it happen the other way around, for example, with psychology?
So I think generally not. There is a little bit of, so the neuroscience program gets a lot of applications, and we will often find students who seem really great, but we just can't quite make that many offers. And so for those students, if they've indicated that they're interested in this, we will transfer their applications to MCB, and sometimes to vision science and sometimes to psychology, but it generally hasn't gone in the other direction. Let me also say there's a number of questions in there about international applicants, so let me kind of address them together. One of them is about funding. So international students, if you get accepted at Berkeley, you get exactly the same support and, full coverage the whole time. So the same financial package as all the other students. There's no difference. In terms of applications, we do admit a number of international students per year. We can't admit the same number, unfortunately, as for U.S. students because some of our funding comes from the federal government, and so we're not only allowed to spend it on U.S. students. But we've always had, I think, a good number of international students in the program, and so I really would encourage you to apply. It's really, don't count yourself out of applying to our program on some fear that you can't get in. International students absolutely do get in. And then someone also asked about international classes. And sure, courses that you've taken in any institution across the world, you can submit those as part of your transcript and your background when you apply, and we will look at those and take those into account for sure. Someone also asked about a green card. If you have a green card, you're actually considered in the U.S. citizens pool and not into international pool.
Thank you. Let's see here. What counts as research experience? I get this question a lot in our email inquiries as well.
Well, it's very varied, right? I'd say that, first of all, I'd say that on average, I think our average applicant probably has a year and a half or so of research experience. That research experience is sometimes, benchtop research, if that's the background that they come from, wet lab research. Sometimes it's computational research. Sometimes it's being part of clinical programs where, you're helping to enroll patients in some clinical study and tracking those outcomes. It's really very varied. And all those examples I just gave are from neuroscience, but actually there's also students who come in with really great, computer science backgrounds or engineering backgrounds. So we want to hear what you've done and how you think about the work that you've done. There's not really a rigid criterion for an exact type of research or even an exact duration of research. I would say, though, just to be practical, if you have, substantially less than a year of research, like if you only have a semester of research, for example, I think that probably is a disadvantage in our program for applications.
Great. Is there an interview process? Oops, it just shifted. And if so, how would this interview process be conducted, online or in person? So we do have an interview process. Students or applicants will be selected to interview virtually across 2 weekends. So half of the candidates will be interviewing one weekend at the end of January, and then the other candidates in a weekend in early February. And then after that virtual interview process, applicants that are selected for admission to the program will be invited to an in-person visit. And on our webpage that Peony posted previously, we have the timeline for that there.
Hey, can I elevate one question? Because maybe our
Please.
student panelists can help answer this. There was a question a bit back about, tell us more about the student-student mentoring or interactions between students in the program.
So for your first year, every week we have Neuro Friends, where I think you have like $20 per person with your cohort to get food, hang out, socialize, build connections, bonding. And we have definitely utilized that. I think especially in the first semester, where you just got to Berkeley and you spend time together during NeuroCamp for a week or so, but then you kind of start rotation and you don't really see each other. So this is a really good time to catch up and with this like within cohort bonding. And I'm sure Caroline can add more to what the first years are up to now. And afterwards, from second year and up, you meet with your cohort once a month or every other month, and then the off months you mingle with students in the different years. So this is a really good way to get to know folks outside of your cohort. And we also have the bear hours and all of these, different recruitment events, and also seminars are great places to kind of catch up with people, especially, you're all interested in these broad neuroscience aspects or topics, and to meet with the speakers, have lunch with them, but also catch up with each other. And I think, now that Deepthi and I are in our second year, getting ready to, prepare for our quals, there's the sense of camaraderie, and we're, meeting or planning to meet more often to, study the foundational questions. So there's a lot of, bonding time within your cohort, but also with the other students, and the mentoring that we get in my first year was really helpful from the third years and above, how they have the advices that they had for rotations, how to pick your rotations and how to communicate with faculty. If you're not sure how to phrase an email, they will, double check on that. So I think if you ask, there are plenty of folks who are willing to help, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, adding on to Kailin's points as well. So I'm in the first year cohort, and Neuro Friends, I believe, is once a month now for us. And we've used it every single month. Like the past month, we had the Neuro Retreat, which is a yearly event, which allows us to also like interact with all the neuro people between cohorts, even some neuro people from MCB and like psychology and things like that. We used it to get an Airbnb for an extra day after that. So that's been good. For student mentorship as well, Helen Wills offers also a student mentor program. So like, for example, I'm paired with a third year in Helen Wills named Diana, and every month we like meet up and get food funded by the program. And we also meet up like outside of that as well for like any advice or just to talk and things like that. And generally I've noticed that cohorts, like everybody in the cohorts above me is very open to giving people advice and like reaching out if you need help and things like that, is what I'd say.
I'll just quickly add, again, echoing everything that has already been said. Another way to like really sort of meet or talk to other students is like being involved. So a lot of Helen Wills students are involved in volunteering. So things like Bay Area scientists, where we like teach lessons to public school children, or I'm involved in the Berkeley Science Review, or even like the union. So there's other sort of, non-academic focused things where you can interact with other students. And I also just feel like one point that Kailin had mentioned, where if you sort of want to reach out to anybody in like a lab or like a specific area, I have never had an issue just like slacking someone or emailing someone. Everyone just seems to go above and beyond in terms of like giving advice. So if you want mentoring from other students, it's either like in a structured way or it's just very easy to sort of do on your own.
Thank you. We have a question that's asking about accommodations. What options are available, and can we receive more in-depth explanation? I think that's kind of broad. There are various accommodations on campus, and various resources on campus for accommodations for a variety of needs. I would say if you feel comfortable emailing us for some general information, I can refer to websites on campus and the campus resources that are available there. And I can direct you in that way. Let's see here. There's a question about funding for undocumented students. And does it work the same way? And I would say that there are some restrictions on the types of funding that can be utilized for undocumented students, but we work with the graduate division on campus to meet the funding needs and support our students at the level, the annual minimum level that we provide for our students. But the specific sources of the money might vary. Let's see here. Let's see if there are topics here that we haven't addressed yet.
I can pick up a couple from the end there. So somebody asks about whether students should feel like they need to have a publication from their prior research in order to be competitive in the application. And I would say absolutely not. You need to have enough experience in your research to be able to describe the problem well and what you've done and how you think about it. You need to write a compelling statement of purpose. But we definitely don't expect that applicants will have, a final finished publication somewhere. We recognize that depending on, what part in a project you landed in when you arrived in the lab, some students have that, some students do not. We don't judge based on that. Another student asked similarly, do we select for students who have post-bac experience? And I'd say, again, we don't explicitly select for that. There's certainly no requirement for that. We need students to have a certain amount of research experience so that they know what they're interested in and can describe it well. And I would say, I'm going to guess probably half of the students that we have applying have that research experience as part of their undergraduate degree, and the other half of them have some combination of undergraduate plus some post-bac experience. And I don't mean necessarily in a post-bac program, but I just mean some additional experience that has continued beyond getting their undergraduate degree.
There's a question here about the types of support the program has for students as they near completion and for their future career paths.
Well, the support that students get here remains complete for your entire time here. So, our goal is that students will graduate in 5.5 to 6 years. And so during that whole time, you'll have your tuition paid and your stipend paid and all the benefits paid. Behind the scenes, we and your lab thesis mentor gather that money from different sources, but the students don't have to worry about where that comes from. And we don't really have cases where that funding situation really changes at the end for students. I think you can just be confident that that will happen.
Okay. A question is, with an emphasis on collaboration, have you had any experiences where you wanted to be trained on a technique outside of your lab? Are there facilities where you can be trained on things like microscopy or coding?
I can say something generic on that, but then maybe we can turn it over to the students also for that. We have really great research facilities here. Of course, each laboratory has its own laboratory, right? So there's laboratory-specific equipment and methods. But in addition to that, we have great shared facilities. For example, for brain imaging, we have a brain imaging center with modern magnets and other devices for human measurements. We have 2 very good microscopy facilities. One of them has an array of all the most advanced commercially available microscopes, different types of confocals and multiphoton microscopes, light sheet microscopes, for example. And then the other facility is a more experimental facility called the Advanced Biological, it's ABC, but I'm forgetting what the C stands for. But they have these really great sort of multimodality microscopes for ultrastructure imaging, including live ultrastructure imaging, which is really cool. And those facilities will very often have courses, like a little short course that students can take to learn what they need to learn before they start that work. There's also genetics and genomics facilities and other facilities like that on campus. Do any of the students here have experience in getting training in methods from outside the lab? Or maybe within your lab, do they do this routinely?
Yes. So I have checked out there are many, like for example, for coding or building on your quantitative and analytical skills. There are workshops on campus from D Lab, for example, or that has routine trainings on the different methods in different languages, as well as the computational CCB biology program that they have Python Bootcamp, I believe, and I think Grad Div, the graduate division, also has travel scholarship. If you were to go to a conference and present, and there are workshops there, they can also fund travels that way. But depending on the details. And I've also talked to my PI about if there are these skills, like which collaborators can he point me to, go to their lab meetings, talk to folks from their labs to build these skills.
I will also quickly add, there's a lot of students in Helen Wales that sort of go to, places like Woodhull, Cold Spring Harbor Laboratories during the summertime and learn, various techniques, whether it's like whole cell patch clamp, dynamical systems, or, there's opportunities both at Berkeley and elsewhere for you to get these skills.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. A few more just came in. For the current graduate students, do you find the stipend sufficiently covers the cost of living in the Bay Area?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. The long answer is like there are housing, I think, is the primary thing that eats up your stipend, and you can choose to have more expensive rent or less. I don't know. Okay. Like you can find cheaper housing options and live pretty well on the stipend, like scrounging through Zillow. You can also just choose to have a single close by to campus. Usually those are around 2,000, 1,500 to 2,000. The stipend is enough either way you decide. But depending on how much your rent is, you might want to cut back on certain things.
Yeah, I would say also it's definitely enough. You won't be able to live luxuriously, but depending on what you prioritize, do you want to live in a studio, but you might have to meal prep more, or do you want to, live with a few roommates and have a big house, or live in a co-op, but then you have more money to go to concerts, go travel. So it's definitely enough to, have a good space to live and have hobbies and to be able to eat and, do basic things.
I think we're at the end of our time.
Okay, well, thank you all for attending and for the students to answer the questions. I realize we didn't answer all of the questions that were in your Q&A. So, feel free to email our neuro program. I think the emails is in the chat. For if you have any other questions, or you just repeat the same questions you had, and we'll try to answer all of your questions. So thank you again, and I hope this was useful. And have a great afternoon and rest of the day.